a recent trip to Dayton, Ohio, the C-SPAN school bus stopped at the United States Air Force Museum, located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to learn about the history of the 1909 and 1911 model Wright Flyers and the role these aircraft played in the development of early military aviation.
The Wright brothers understood that to make the aircraft economically feasible and to make money off it, they had to either sell it to very, very wealthy sportsmen or sell it to the government. And the only government agency at the time purchasing was the military. So they knew they had to sell aircraft, and that's why the 1909 Flyer was so important to the Wright brothers and to Dayton and to the future development of the United States Air Force. The United States Army became interested in aviation toward the end of the 19th century and into the early 20th century. The Europeans were worrying about it also, and the Army was interested in finding some sort of platform for doing reconnaissance and possibly even bombardment. So they looked in two different directions. One direction was toward lighter-than-air balloons, dirigibles, and the other direction was heavier-than-air, an aircraft as we would know it today. And so in 1908, the Wright brothers took their aircraft to Fort Myer, Virginia, where they proved the aircraft could fly. Unfortunately, before the test was finished, the aircraft crashed, injuring Orville Wright and killing Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge, who was the first man killed. The next year, 1909, an aircraft that was very, very similar, they returned to Fort Myer, and this time they successfully proved their aircraft to the Army, and at that point, the United States Army purchased the first aircraft for $25,000, and because the Wright brothers had actually exceeded the expectations, they were given a small bonus of $5,000. This aircraft is a unique aircraft. It looks strange to us today. When you look at it, you see the two wings. You'll notice there are no ailerons because the Wright brothers were using wing warping technique that they had developed. Also, if you look at the front of the aircraft, you can see that the elevators are in the front of the plane and the rudder is in the back. Well, this was successful at first, but as the aircraft began flying faster and getting higher and running into more gusts, the Wrights discovered that the elevator in the front caused the aircraft to kind of porpoise up and down, which was extremely dangerous. The major difference between the 1909 Flyer and the 1911 Flyer is that the Wright brothers have moved the elevator to the rear of the aircraft. It has a larger engine. The aircraft is also a little bit bigger on the 1911 model. It is more capable of fulfilling the military's requirements. So this is more or less a test bed where the early pilots for the Army start discovering what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do.
To get an idea of what it was like to fly in a vintage aircraft, the school bus crew also visited the Wright B Flyer Museum. Located at the Dayton Wright Brothers Airport, the museum is home to a fully operational replica 1911 B-model airplane.
We selected a 1911 Wright B Flyer to build, and we selected the military version because it was a little stronger, and we made it look like so that it looks like theirs, but it's a lot stronger, so we could get through the FAA and fly. It's very difficult. It stalls at 45 and full power is at 55. So as far as the power situation is concerned, it's very much like theirs in that you go full power and we get ready to land, you pull it back a little bit. And it's the controls are real sloppy. The best way I describe the flying of it is it's like driving an old worn-out trailer across a plowed field. The wings are so big, you don't have a fuselage on it, it bounces all over the sky, particularly in summertime when you have a lot of thermals. You might notice that this has dual controls. And the Wright brothers got this contract with the military because they wanted to train pilots. So our best estimate is that they must have built about 30 of these airplanes, both civilian and military. And most all of them have a dual control on it so they can teach people how to fly. What they had to do is they did a lot of ground training. They set in, they had a simulator that the Wrights had made up, and they practiced with the controls and all. And then, of course, they'd go up with an instructor in the right seats and learn. Now, generally, the pilots would be a right seat pilot or left seat pilot because of the sticks that they had. In other words, it was different from flying from a left seat than a right seat. So the military, though, had about 5 little items they had to do in order to get these wings. And basically what it was is you go out and fly at about 1,000 feet, observe something on the ground, and come back and don't kill yourself, and then you got your wings. We're the only one we know of that's flying. Now, we have some 500 hours on it, and we've been as far is Berlin, Germany, at Tempelhof, where the Wright Brothers flew in 1910, and but we're the only one that we know of that's flying in the world.
Once the U.S. Army purchased this aircraft and it began training its pilots, it started looking at ways to use these aircraft. They would do things such as firing a rifle to see if it could be done. They would fly over to see if they could keep track of horses and maneuvers. They would use the aircraft to try to take some photography. Again, this was the very learning stage. The aircraft could not carry a great deal of weight, so every step was a new step in a new direction. They knew the potential. Yes, if we can get a big enough airplane and a fast enough airplane, we can carry bombs also and take a war to the enemy. And that's exactly what happens during the First World War, and that idea carries over into the interwar period and into World War II with the strategic bombing campaigns. So it all starts very early, 1909, when they actually get out and start flying these airplanes around.